Algeria broke diplomatic relations with Morocco this week as long-running tensions came to a head. The past season's forest fires, so-called hostile actions and separatist struggles contributed to the decision, which led to dismay in the Moroccan capital Rabat.
It's a bad decision. There is no reason to do it. It's like cutting ties with your next-door neighbor. We are all part of the Maghreb Union, Algeria, Tunisia, etc. All the same. There is no difference. It is just between the governments that this is going on.
Morocco's foreign ministry slammed the decision as completely unjustified and based on false and even absurd pretexts. But it also said the move was expected, in view of increasingly strained relations in recent months. One of the key disputes is over Western Sahara, a former Spanish colony that Morocco claims as part of its territory. Meanwhile, Algiers backed the Polisario independence movement. Last year, the United States recognized Morocco's sovereignty over the territory in exchange for Rabat normalizing ties with Israel. For Algeria, a fervent supporter of the Palestinian cause, this amounted to introducing a foreign military force into the Maghreb. When forest blazes devastated Algeria in mid-August, it accused its neighbour of backing the internal separatist group that it blames for starting the fires. Thousands of Zambians filled the Heroes Stadium in Lusaka to witness the swearing-in of new President Hakainde Hichilema.
We showed the world, the whole world, the resilience of our democracy, and we reaffirm that power belongs to the people of Zambia, not we who are elected to serve the people, but the power is reposited in the people of Zambia, not anyone else.
The 59-year-old millionaire beat President Edgar Lungu by almost 1 million votes in elections on August 12th. The victory is the 17th opposition win in sub-Saharan Africa since 2015, and was achieved despite restricted campaigning and suspected rigging in favour of Lungu's party. Almost a third of voters were aged between 24 and 34, an emergent generation of young adults more connected to the outside world and less tolerant of restricted freedoms. Hichilema has promised to rebuild the nation's debt-saddled economy. His priority is to bring down the inflation rate and make basic goods affordable again in a country where more than half the population live below the poverty line. A flight carrying Afghan evacuees fleeing the Taliban takeover touched down on Wednesday in Uganda, where they will be given temporary refuge. 51 Afghan men, women and children landed in the lakeside city of Entebbe. Foreign Minister John Mulimba told Parliament that more are expected in the coming days.
The evacuees will remain in Uganda while they are processed by the US Embassy for their onward journey. It is worth noting that these are not refugees. The processing may take a few weeks or months. The cost of providing for needs and requirements of the evacuees is being made by the US authorities.
Uganda itself, meanwhile, drew criticism for suspending 54 non-governmental organisations, including its most prominent rights group, last Friday.
This is but a continuation of the restricting of civic space in Uganda, using legal, administrative and physical restraint on organizations across the country, targeting organizations that are largely involved in governance work, and therefore represents, in my view, a wider crackdown on civil society using administrative means.
President Yoweri Museveni is serving his 6th term in office after a violent election campaign late last year marked by the arrest of opposition figures, attacks on the media and the deaths of several dozen people. Former Chadian dictator Hissène Habré has died from COVID-19 at age 79. He was serving a life term in Senegal for crimes against humanity. His victims deplored his passing before they could be paid reparations.
As victims, we would have liked for Hissène Habré to have lived a long time so he could help with victims' compensation.
Habré seized power in 1982, ruling with an iron fist until he was forced out in 1990. His rule was marked by brutal crackdowns on dissent, including alleged torture and executions of opponents. He had recently left prison in Dakar for care in this hospital, where he died. Chad denied him a state funeral. He was buried in a small ceremony in Dakar.
This rare woodland in Benin is one of the last of its kind. The Hlanzoun swamp forest in the West African country is home to unrivaled flora and fauna. Ecologists are keeping close watch on this area, accessible only by canoe.
Listen, you can hear the call of the hornbill. The hornbill is a large bird with a big beak. It's a bit like the African cousin of the toucan. They are an omnivorous species. They eat insects and fruit.
Over 160 animal species live here together, camouflaged and spread around the dense vegetation. But despite these paradise conditions, the animal population is plummeting. People who live around the forest are hunting its animals. For some, it's driven by hunger. According to the World Bank, over a third of Benin lives under the poverty line. But others illegally poach animals to sell them.
When you go to Zogbodomé, you see by the roadside people bring monitor lizards, antelope and other species. Where do they kill them? If it's not on the plantations, it's in this forest.
Yet even more serious than poaching is the loss of habitat. Villagers cut down trees for firewood. Recently, they started to drain parts of the swamp to plant crops. A decade ago, the forest stretched over nearly 3,000 hectares. Much less remains today.
It turns out that of these 2,945 hectares, we estimate that the remaining forest space covers 500 to 600 hectares, more or less.
Forest defenders say the government must provide incentives so inhabitants use their environment more sustainably.
If we support them to do agriculture, market gardening, small trade, if we support them above all to encourage tourism in this forest, if we support them to develop areas to produce species for firewood, these communities will preserve these forests, because the resources that they contain are the resources of humanity today.
Meanwhile, the remaining animals have grown cautious of humans. It's becoming harder to spot the remarkable species that call the Hlanzoun forest home.